I don't make noise, can I make my tea after?
Yeah, Babu. I'm live now. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Please let me know if you can hear me. If you're on the live stream, just give me a comment letting me know that you can hear me clearly, please. If you guys are joining in, if you can hear me, let me know by typing it in the comment section. Just gonna wait a couple before we can start to begin here. Okay, it says that you guys are chatting. Hey, what's up, Rick? Awesome. Yeah, it's actually 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. That's correct. I believe it's 7 p.m. Central. Maybe we're an hour. You're an hour behind of Eastern. So yeah, it should be 7 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, if I'm not mistaken. Don't hold me to it. I believe this is it. So we're gonna wait a couple more minutes as individuals start coming to the live stream. Try to make it as extensive as possible and as available as possible while we wait around for that. So I'm just waiting. It's good to see you here, Rick. Are you a current subscriber? Have you been watching my videos? And where are you coming from exactly? Location. So give me some updates there. Hey, what's up, Lita? Good to see you. We're just waiting on a couple people to start up. It's a normal queue. We're just waiting up, and we should be starting soon. Awesome. So good to see you, Rick, from Oklahoma. Just sipping on some coffee and preparing for today's stream. Just a couple more minutes, and we should be getting to started. I got a whole lot of stuff for you guys today. We're going to be preparing some documents and letters together in this live stream. So if you're watching this, you caught it at the best time. And we got a lot of stuff that's going to be happening today, and I'm definitely looking forward to giving you guys some value at best. I appreciate that, Rick. I appreciate that. I try to be as thorough as I possibly can when it comes to these live streams. So I'm glad that you enjoy it. Okay, yeah. Hopefully the microphone is not too loud. Okay. So we're just getting situated. Just a couple more minutes and we should be good to go. So how's COVID treating you guys? Hopefully everybody's staying safe and sound, and nobody in the family got affected, and if so, I hope it all works out. It's been pretty crazy lately. Keep losing good people to COVID. All right. Hey, what's up, Jay? How's it going? It's good to see you here. All right, so let me get started. I'm gonna. So as others join, obviously, like we're gonna wait. Let's see. We're gonna prepare some documents together, right? So let me know if you guys can see the screen here. Obviously, as I'm typing, hopefully you should be able to. There should be no reason as to why you can't. What's up, Tony? Good to see you here. It's been a while. I haven't seen you, Tony. How's everything with you? Hope you've been staying safe and sound, and all is well with you. Excellent. Now I can see my screen, and you guys should be able to see the document here. All right. I'm not sure if I can zoom in much. Maybe that's the best view right here. Perfect. And I'll try to keep the font size a bit optimal so that everybody can read. Keep the chat box open. So feel free to ask the questions as you guys begin joining in here into this live stream. So what is the purpose of today's video? All right, so that's what we're going to discuss. So yeah, no problem, Tony. So the purpose of today's video is very simple. We're going to go through some documents together. We're going to prepare some sample letters just to show you guys the strategy on the way I think when it comes to document preparation. And perhaps you can adapt to some of these techniques for your own credit repair journey, especially if you're starting out or if you're already there and you're looking to, obviously execute some successful credit repair strategies. So it's definitely good that you guys joined me today. I'm hoping that other people will join us very shortly and that we'll have a nice little crowd here. There's a little buffer and delay, so there are some questions that may come in maybe a couple seconds later until the point I see them. So if I'm not answering you right away, please bear that in mind. And at any given point as we're going through these materials, feel free to if you have any questions, leave it in the chat box so that I can review it. I'll go through the chat box and I'll read those questions and try to address them to the best of my ability, as we go from there. So let's get situated. Hey, it's good to see you here. Love and fashion. Perfect. So let's begin. So like any documents that you guys do, I think the most important thing is to identify yourself, right? But it's not just a perspective identification. It's the way you do it. And a lot of times what happens is we're doing things in a document that we're not really realizing what we're writing without the knowledge of the specifics of what we're writing. So I'll give you an example of this. So like any document, what you want to do is you want to start with today's date. So let's say today's date is whatever it is. So in today's date, happy Valentine's Day, all you guys, by the way. So it's the 14th of February. So that's what you start with. And then you start with your name. Whoops, I'm not sure why that happened. But we start with your name. And you start with your first and last name. And what you want to do is you want to keep it bold and capitalized. So let's say your name is John Smith. You start with that. You keep it bold and you keep it in a point where it's capitalized at all times. And that's very important. That's just one of those things that you guys want to have. Okay, so for the addresses, that's perfect. Don't worry, Rick, we're going to actually address that. So again, the structure is the date, and then you have your name. Now, what happens is eOscar has this tendency of reading invert, right? So it would go from left to right. So what you can actually do to play a little game, if you guys want, you can put the information on the right side. That's just something for you to know if you want to just, mess with it. Now, what I would do, typically speaking, and this is important, is I would keep it in the center when it comes to addressing the parties that we want. So we're going to say, attention, credit reporting agencies. Now, one thing to note, and the reason why we're doing this, and we're not going to capitalize them or anything like that, we just do it bold. The reason why you're saying credit reporting agencies and you're not necessarily going based on individual reports is because we're going to be looking at Identity IQ for this specific video and live stream. So Identity IQ has a tendency of putting information side by side and comparing, contrasting all three reports at the same time. So you have that. So that's what's going to be happening. So we'll be leveraging that for what we'll be doing today. All right, not sure what happened with the video here. Give me 2 seconds, guys. Just bear with me. Camera froze for no reason whatsoever. Okay. Anyways, if it gives too much of a trouble, what I'll do is I'll continue anyways, just for the sake of conversation and continuing on to make sure that we have this properly done. You gotta be kidding me. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. If this becomes too much of an issue, we will address it right away. And we'll continue doing our videos and our structure without compromise. So just bear with me as I fix this issue. Okay, perfect. Back on. It's ridiculously annoying when that happens. Okay. Perfect. Back on. All right, so going back to the document. So the reason why we're doing, like I said, once again, the credit reporting agencies is all three at the same time is because we're checking identity IQ on today's live stream. So attention credit reporting agencies, then what you want to do is you want to structure it in a sense that no more bold, you know, you can go back to your normal font, go back to the standard left side right up. And what you want to say is there are a series of mistakes, inaccuracies, and data errors on the reports that I have attached. Keep it as simple as possible, right? So one of the things about credit repair, especially when you're starting to process your credit repair journey, when you're starting off at the very beginning, is you want to try to keep it as simple as possible. And the reason I say that is because you know, you have to make sure that when you're starting off, you don't have anything getting in your way. So you start by saying the simple, very basic and obvious information and statement. You say, look, there's a lot of mistakes on the credit reports. There's a lot of inaccuracies and data errors that I have attached. Now, what you want to start with, and Rick, I'll get to the information when it comes to the address information that you're having issues with. So what you want to do is you want to start with that, and then what you'll do also at the same time here is you'll say, look, attached below are names and addresses along with other personal details that are not relevant, misleading, and inaccurate. My request is that you please remove them. Simple as that, right? Now, the most important thing about this is you try to keep it linear. You have all three bureaus, and what you can do is you can take a snapshot of that information side by side. But in this case, let's say it's John D. Smith. You can say John Smith, let's say, something like that, right? As simple as that. Those are the names. And let's say the addresses could be 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever the case. Something along those lines, right? Now, the reason why you want to do this is very important is because you're going to keep a sequence in how you're requesting information to be removed. So you started off with your personal name, and then what you're doing is you're starting off with your address. Now, one of the biggest things you want to do here is you want to keep it bold, but at the same time also you want to highlight it in yellow. So the information that you want removed, keep it highlighted in yellow. It's a very important thing that you want to do because you want the Oscar system to pay attention to that. But let's assume that somehow a person who is individually looking at this information looks through it. The eyes automatically gaze in that yellow section. So the most important thing is to make sure that the information that you want them to pay attention to, specifically given the fact that it's itemized, has to be highlighted in yellow, bold, and capitalized at all times, right? So that's the first thing we got there, okay? Now, Let's assume that's the only things in your personal identifier. And by the way, you can add, let's say phone numbers, you can add social security numbers, date of births, and a whole lot of other things that you want to get removed. And by all means, you feel free to do that as well, and that's going to be awesome, right? So let's say that's the case. Now we're going to move on to the negative items. Now I got a whole list of things for you guys today. So let me go ahead and pull that up for you. Awesome. So I got a late payment. So typically speaking, late payments and stuff would be a video number 2, which is the channel insider members. But I'm going to dig deeper into that on the second live stream, which is going to be next week for those who are channel members already. But I'm going to give you guys a little brief of how it would look like so that we can have some tools to play with here. So let me pull that up right here quickly for you guys. All right. So what you start with is you say, okay, here is, and I keep it not centered, obviously, that's not what you want. Here is an account that is misleading and inaccurate. And always use those terms. Use misleading and inaccurate. It's as simple as that. And the reason why it's misleading is because you will see it as we put together the snapshot here. Right now it's a bit too, the words are a bit too big, but we'll try to squeeze it in here. Let's see if we can do that. There we go. Perfect. Now, you guys should be able to see this account specifically here. Now, let me know if you can see it. Give me a yes if you can see it, please, on the chat of the live stream so that I can have a look and that you guys are actually following the letter with me here. It's very important. I'm not just going to show you how to write the letter. I'm going to show you how to spot the inaccuracies and misleading information that's being reported and what to look out for. So if you guys can see the snapshot, let me know by saying a yes on the chat box right there in the live stream so that we can go ahead and continue. Okay, so I'm waiting for you guys for some reason. I don't know if it's the chat box itself that's being delayed or the YouTube live stream platform. So hopefully you guys should be able to see this. Okay, so just let me know that you guys can see it and then we should be good. Awesome. Perfect. Good. Yeah, so it's slightly delayed like I said. So yeah, we should be good. Anyways, so let's analyze this account very carefully, okay? Perfect. It's too small. Yes, I know it's a bit small. What you guys will have to do for this, well, let's see if I can zoom in to give you the maximum range here. Hopefully you guys should be able to see it a bit better now. I can't do more than this because what happens is it automatically goes too small, right? But I want you to pay attention to something, right? So whenever we're analyzing a late payment, when we're actually challenging it and we're writing documents and we're preparing to fight off a negative account, specifically when it comes to late payment, you're not necessarily disputing the account itself, because if you do that, the standardized response is going to be, yeah, this account belongs to you, it's been verified by the creditor, there's nothing we can do. If you have any specific questions or something changed, let us know, and so on and so forth. So if you don't want a standardized dispute process and a standardized resolution, then you're going to have to go a little bit further than that and be very specific when it comes to disputing, right? Or challenging in this case, right? So now I want you guys to pay attention to something. Then the reason why we do a snapshot of a side-by-side comparison as we use Identity IQ is because the information usually contains everything we need to see on one single snapshot, right? Now I want you guys to pay attention to the payment grid right here. What do you see in the payment grid, right? So what you see is on January of 2021, there's a 60-day late, but on TransUnion and Equifax, nothing has been mentioned, right? Then obviously everything else is congruent with one another, but there's something that went off when it comes to January. So when we start to look at accounts and when we start to question those accounts and when we start to put together our dispute package or challenge package, we've got to start to analyze things, especially when it comes to the sequence that I just mentioned, right? Now, the biggest thing there is obviously the payment grid. When you're looking at a late payment, when you're looking at a collection account, when you're looking at a charge-off or any types of derogatory accounts, the most important place that your eye should automatically gaze to, especially if you have Identity IQ, even though they're using VantageScore, the reading of the report is very important. Now, when you start to look at that payment infrastructure, especially on the payment grid that's laid out for 24 months, and you start to see incongruence in these areas, you have to start to question that, right? So the first thing we're going to do right after get-go is we're going to question that, right? So what do we see? We see that it is stated that on Jan of 2021, Experian has 60 days late, yet the other two bureaus have failed to report data on time, which is a violation of the FCRA and accuracy requirements. Something as simple as that, right? So what you want to do is, if you pay attention to the specific questioning process or a statement that you just put out on your document, it enables the credit reporting agencies or the system to kind of see what the process is or what's happening, right, on a snapshot perspective. We didn't even label out the account information because we want that scanned. And by the way, you should be able to open up your credit reports on an HTML file or PDF file. You know, use a tool like snipping tool on your if you're on Windows, or a screen capture thing on your Mac, and just take a snapshot of your credit reporting item, especially the way I've done it here on Identity IQ, the entire snapshot here, and just put it onto the document, right? And like I said here is an account that is misleading and inaccurate. We didn't say what it was. We just labeled it out and we just put it there, and we put that snapshot there, and then we went on questioning right off the get-go. As the process is, like, what's the first thing we look at is the payment grid, right? And right off the get-go, we looked at the payment grid and we're like, hey, look, on Experian, there's a 60-day late, but in Equifax and TransUnion, there are mistakes there, and we absolutely need to make sure that we can fix that. So that's what we do. Now, we're going to state that in the document. It is stated that on January of 2021, Experian says it was 60 days late, yet on the other two bureaus, they have failed to report data on time, which is a violation of the FCR and accuracy requirements. Now, what you can do a bit further, you can say, in addition to that, how do you know that the account was 60 days late and not 30? How do you know that the account was 30 days late if it was never late, right? So you got to question it. And what I want you guys to really be familiar with when it comes to credit repair and the document writing is understanding on how to question it. You guys saying that there's a lot of echo? Okay. Do you still hear a lot of echo? For some reason, you guys are saying that there's some echo. Let me know if you guys can hear a lot of echo. Shouldn't hear some echo. I'm going to try to make the adjustment here so that we don't have that. Do you guys still hear echo? Let me know if you hear some echo, because I want to make sure that the microphone is working properly before we continue on to the documentation. Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. So, going back to this late payment document, or a snapshot of this account, as we say, we're going to question the item, right? So the first thing we did was we looked at the payment grid. 60 days late on Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax obviously has their missing information, and we're going to label that out. What we see, we label it out. We put it on the document. We're not going to say I'm disputing this account, it's not mine, or it's section 609 or whatever. That kind of stuff, okay, it's very templated. It's not very specific. And remember, I talked to you guys about this before, and I said you have to learn to question the information as though you are having to stack evidence against these creditors, and especially the credit bureaus for allowing information to be reported when in fact it's inaccurate. And the reason why we're doing this is because thank you guys for confirming that there's no more echo. I appreciate that. If you guys have any sound issues, just let me know ahead of time, right? So going back to that, right? So whenever you're preparing documentation and information on a credit reporting standpoint, and you're going to dispute it, and you're going to prepare a package for your credit repair, do it so that you're actually filing a lawsuit, right? So a standardized process of looking at a lawsuit is, now let's say this is the beginning, okay? And let's say this is the middle ground where you guys are filing your disputes, right? And let's say that this is the final resolution, and that's what you want, okay? So when you're doing these type of things, the most important thing is to make sure that you have everything lined up properly, right? So for you to go from here to here, right, you have to have information that is pretty much standardized, that you have evidence stacked against them. You have things that are substance and it carries weight in your favor. So what are some of those things? What are some of the things that has to be checked in this bucket? And that's what you're doing, is you're stacking evidence that's not necessarily congruent on the credit reporting standard, but also it's kind of violating the terms of accuracy. It's allowing information to be misleadingly reporting, which is a violation of the FCRA, and those type of things follow up. But if you're not very specific when it comes to making sure that the information is contained as a structure, or if you're not very specific into how you go about removing those negative items, you're not going to be successful in a suit. Or let's say if you weren't to get a judgment or an enforcement by the court side to make sure that the creditors and credit bureaus comply. So you got to treat it as a lawsuit. Now, I'm not saying that you have to file a lawsuit. Perhaps you're going to get those negative items removed before that even happens, and it's quite possible. But what you need to understand is if you're going to start your process of repair, you got to make it look like you're going to file a suit, and you need to make sure that the information contained in those documents is factually truthful. You cannot say that it doesn't belong to me and you create an identity theft claim and you file a police report and swear a false affidavit, which is, by the way, perjury, and it can land you in 2 years in prison plus $1 million in fines, and so on and so forth. You got to do it based on what you have, and you got to use the tools, and you got to learn how to analyze it to the best of your ability, because that's what's going to give you the outcomes that you're looking for in credit repair, right? Now, we're not saying that these items don't belong to you or not. What we're doing is we're challenging on how the creditor is not complying, which is stopping them from reporting in the first place, and that can potentially be the best thing you have going for you. Now, when it comes to late payments, it's not always the case that we want to get those late payments removed. It's just a couple of small things, right? So what you can say in this final section, which is a 3-part questioning process. Number 1, we question the payment grid. Number 2, we're stating the how do we know it's 60 days or even let alone 30 days late. And then we can say, please adjust the account to paid as agreed based on the evidence provided. As simple as that, a 1-line sentence, and that's it, right? So you guys, if you keep it simple when it comes to credit repair, when you keep it simple when it comes to account snapshot, you see it's not as complicated as it's people make it to be, right? Now we can tackle a whole lot more information, right? Like for example, if you look at the last report, the dates are kind of incongruent across all 3, right? There's a whole lot of things like date of last active that's not congruent across all 3. There's a whole lot of things that we can individually dig into and create a huge document set, which then questions every single process on how it was reported and the integrity of the item itself on your credit report, which by the way should be accurate as in accordance to EOSCR. But we're not going ahead and doing that. We're keeping it as simple as possible, because those additional things can work for us on our second round, right? Which is the second set of things we want, which is going to be right here, the box number 2, right here. That could be our second round. So, but just to keep it simple, like I said, we gaze at the payment grid, we put the information there. We start to question, January of 21. How come there's 2 bureaus that are not reporting anything yet one is doing something? And then how do we know it's 60? How do we know even it's 30? And based on that, based on the evidence that it is not accurate, and we see the errors right off the get-go on the payment history tab, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and update it to paid as agreed, because it is a late payment and the history can help us, and therefore it's 35% of your credit score. Just simply by asking them to update it to paid as agreed automatically subjects you to have a higher score right off that small modification. But we didn't dig deep into the item itself. We're just doing it based on a questioning process, right? So if you guys understand what I'm saying, let me know on the chat that this makes sense, so that we can continue with our questioning of the following items. I hope you guys are enjoying this, and you're going to see how simple it is as we do this together, and you're going to see how we can use this to our advantage. And I'm going to find the other items for you so we can go ahead and look at it together. Okay, perfect. I got a good one for you guys. All right. All right, so let me know, guys. You guys, are you enjoying this? Are you learning something? Are you able to see what I'm talking about? Awesome, good to hear, Tony. I'm glad you found it useful. Perfect. So simplicity wins the game, right, ladies and gentlemen? Simplicity wins the game. Now let's look at another account, right? Now here is another account for your review. And what did we say about writing the letters and doing a snapshot of the account into the document? We're not going to label out the account information. We're not going to make it easy for you, Oscar. It's as simple as that, right? We're going to go ahead and scan the actual snapshot of the account. And we're using Identity IQ, like I said, for the sake of simplicity, to have a side-by-side comparison of all three bureaus so that we have a better scope on what's happening on the account infrastructure as to be able to challenge it the appropriate way, right? So let's go ahead and put another account here. So, and it fit perfectly in this page. So usually the reason I'm putting my font size to like 14 is because I want you, or 13 here, and I zoomed into my screen a little bit, is because I want you guys to see what I'm writing. But generally speaking, you keep a font size, 12 or 13, and you can just simply, each account would have one snapshot in one page, and sometimes you have 10 items, then it's going to be 10 pages long or maybe a little bit more. So don't be shy about the length of the document, but just make sure that whatever you have to ask and how you want to challenge it is not missing anything, that you have everything congruently put in there so that there is no, inaccuracies or anything that's like kind of missing as a stack of evidence for you to have more substance on how you dispute or challenge the information. Now, let's go ahead and check this one out, right? So it's U.S. Department of Education. Obviously, I know a lot of you guys probably have some of these similar accounts that you might have issues with, or it's kind of not reporting the proper way, or it's probably hurting your ability to borrow, and it's just getting there in a place where it's not really comfortable for you. Now, one of the biggest things that I want you to pay attention to when it comes to these type of accounts, now here it states CO, and if we look the Legends tab and Identity IQ, the CO stands for charge off, right? That's one thing that we have to keep in mind, right? But if you notice something very important, like what do we do when we first analyze an item, especially if it's negative? What do we talk about? Where's the first place that our eyes should be looking at immediately, right? We discussed that in the previous item that we disputed. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys to go ahead and leave me a comment in the chat section to let me know where should I be looking first based on this negative item. All right, I'm going to let you guys guess that. And go ahead and leave it in the chat section, so I want to see how many of you guys are actually paying attention. So go ahead, let me know, guys. Where should I be looking when it comes to this type of account? What's the first place that I should be looking at when it comes to analyzing this negative account? So you guys go ahead and let me know in the chat section so that we can all do it together here. Come on, you guys should be able to tell. Shouldn't be complicated. Maybe it's the chat that's being delayed, perhaps. So where's the first place that I should be paying attention to when it comes to a negative account like this? And we talked about this in the previous item, right? So just to reiterate, and hopefully you guys were going to be, and there might be a buffer and a slight delay and as answers are starting to come in, but exactly. There you go. Tony answered it. And I know there's a buffer, so I'm just giving it some time and just repeating myself a little bit before I see those answers. But absolutely. The first place you should be looking at is the payment grid, right? That's the first place that we learn to analyze when it comes to negative items or any negative items that we want to challenge. Why is that, right? Now, the why, it's because the payment grid demonstrates negligence on a creditor standpoint when it comes to reporting. How is it so incongruent? How is it so mismatched? How does that even happen, right? Why does that even happen? So the payment grid is definitely the answer that we're looking for. And thank you, Tony, for answering that. He's actually a channel member, so give him a shout out, guys. So that's the first thing we're going to look at. Now, even before we look at the account information, which is all above here, we can just go and question based off of what we see in the payment grid, and that should be more than sufficient for a complete removal of an account on its own in its entirety, and or the modifications necessary to get the account up to date so that it reflects a more accurate reporting snapshot. All right. Now, going based on the payment grid we have right here, what do we see that's very obvious, right? What do we see that's very obvious, right? So if you go from February to March of 2020, right, it is stated that from, and let's do this together, from February of 2020 to March of 2020, Equifax declared the account 120 days late. How can a month equate to 120 days? Think about that. Logically speaking, just looking at the account right there, Equifax, our best friend, and obviously our partner in crime, stated that from February of 2020, which is right here, and going into March right here, it's stating that it's 120 days late. I don't know which credit bureau or what kind of time loop we exist in outside of the void of space and time, but I've never heard of that, logically speaking, in my life. I've never seen that in my life, right? So, or not that I know that there is such a math that exists, and if it does, please correct me if I'm wrong. But that's just not going to be an acceptable reporting structure for us, right? So the first thing we do is, from February of 2020 to March of 2020, Equifax declared the account 120 days late. How can a month equate to 120 days? That doesn't make any sense. That's just right off the get-go, right there and there, okay? So we already see that, and we already understand based on the payment grant. We can just continue playing with that, right? Now, and let's move away from Equifax for the sake of this conversation. On August of 2020, it is stated, or let's not say it is stated, but let's say Experian states that the account was void and disappeared. Yet it started reporting again on September of 2020. How was I never provided a statement of reinsertion within 5 business days? Like, I'm going real complex for you guys. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm going real complex. And the reason I'm saying this is because we're actually going a little bit deeper, especially when it comes to credit reporting. We know that when a negative item is taken off a report, the creditor, when they put it back on the credit report, they have to give you a notice within 5 business days of a reinsertion of a negative item. That's a general law according to the Fair Credit Reporting Act. We can beat up all the payment grid we want, but I'm starting to stack those violations for you guys, because now they have 5 continuous months of reporting without the reinsertion notice, which is $1,000 a month. Let's assume on statutory damages. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just giving you guys an information that you can leverage. But remember what we said, right? When we're preparing packages, we're preparing all the type of evidence that we possibly can to make our information as strong as humanly possible, so that we can dispute it or challenge it as best possible. So going back to that, and by the way, did we even look at the account information? No, we did not. We don't have to, right? There was no reason for that. That could be on our second round. And that could be going back to even on the second round, we can just go back to the payment grid and be like, what the hell is all this? Then nothing has been changed in what's going on. So I want you guys to really pay attention to how to read a payment grid, because that's probably going to be your best friend when it comes to credit repair. Forget all those complex templates out there. It's just very generic. And don't put yourself as a commodity in front of the credit bureaus like another consumer. Put yourself in a situation where you have the knowledge that's necessary to execute a structured credit repair approach to fix your personal credit to the best of your ability, by learning how to simply understand what needs to be included, understand your rights, understand how to execute an analysis properly, which we're doing together here, and the laws that pertain to specific errors that need to be given attention to. So going back to that, right? So the first thing we talked about was, hey, look, from February to March, 120 days jump. Nah, I'm not taking that as an accurate structure. We just went a little bit further. We said on August of 2020, Experian states that the account was off. It was void and disappeared. Yet when it was reinserted on September of 2020, I was never provided a notice of reinsertion, which is a law that must be done within 5 business days. How come? Right? So that's just something that you can go off of. And then what happens is, and this is just the kicker here, on the report, TransUnion is reporting the item, yet is missing an entire 24 months of payment history. Right? Why is that? You see what I'm saying? Like, if you guys, let me see if I can just, not sure what's happening here. Just bear with me so I can give you guys the 3 questions in the same place. But I'm going to just scroll down a bit so you guys can see it actually on the live stream. So, we talked about like Equifax, and we talked about Experian and the reinsertion law and the rule. But if you think about that, on the actual report itself, the snapshot that we took, Experian and TransUnion and Equifax are reporting. All three credit bureaus are reporting. But on a payment grid, we're just looking at the payment grid, ladies and gentlemen. That's all we're going based off of. We're not even going on the round 2 yet. Why is TransUnion even not reporting anything? What's the point? If you're not reporting payment history, how are you even permitted to even report on the credit reports, right? So why is that, right? And that's it. You leave it off with that. And the reason you're not saying remove, completely get it off my credit report, do all these type of things is because you want the work of an investigation to be done. You don't want to make it easy for the creditor or the credit reporting agency to get away with it. Don't standardize it for them. Make it complicated by asking the right questions and have the tools at your disposal to be able to ask those questions. But on a payment grid, if you're reporting an account on a credit report, therefore you have to have it on the payment grid. That's what accuracy is all about. This is the information that's necessary to be permitted to report in the first place. So you guys need this to be, very clear on your credit report, right? So what do we have? We have TransUnion, we have Equifax, and we have Experian that's right here. So if it's all there, then on the payment grid it's supposed to be there. But why is TransUnion missing completely, right? So we just asked 3 questions on one account, and we didn't even dig deep into dates, amounts, payments, terms, types, comments, activities, or anything like that. We just went based on payment grid. So as you can see, the power of analysis is what creates a very compelling argument to get items modified, removed, or deleted completely from them ever coming back. It's how compelling is it? And just based off the payment grid, you guys have pretty substantial evidence that this information is not reporting accurately, right? So let's go have a little bit more fun. Let's go find another account. So let me know in the chat if you guys are enjoying this, and don't forget to smash that thumbs up for me so that other people can find this video and hopefully get the help they need when it comes to credit repair. So let's go ahead and find you guys another little item so that we can analyze it. Perfect. I got a couple of U.S. Department of Education, but we don't have to go through that. Here's another account that doesn't look too friendly. All right, let me go ahead and take that snapshot for you guys, and while you guys destroy that thumbs up button for me, for sure. All right. So hopefully you guys are learning something interesting. Let me know if you guys are enjoying this. Okay, perfect. Let's go to another account. And obviously, you guys are experts by now in terms of payment grid analysis, so I'm going to let you guys see it first, okay? All right, so you guys are seeing this. Obviously, you saw the account. I gave you guys enough time to analyze it. So what do we get? We got this account right here, whatever they are, direct lender or whatever the case, right? It's an educational loan, so obviously it's probably one of those accounts that was transferred to another bureau for the sake of, or another private company for the sake of being sold off and reporting multiple times. But what do we see in this account, right? Right off the get-go, we see the payment grid. You see what I'm saying? We see the payment grid, and we see that there's a mistake on the payment grid. We learn to analyze. Now, obviously, rightfully so, Experian is not reporting this account. So they're automatically kind of off the hook of this specific structure. They're still getting our document, because, obviously we want to keep it congruent. Like I said, the same document is going to be sent to all three bureaus, notarized, by the way, with certified mail return receipts. But here, right? So what do we see here? So if we were to question this specific account structure, what can we ask? Right? The first thing we can ask is, what do we have here? On December of Equifax, right? So based on the above referenced information, Equifax is stating that from December of 2018 to January of 2018, it is 90 days late. How is that possible? Simple. We started with very simple question. And we see that right here on Equifax. On January to February 2019, respectfully. Why did I say 2018? I'm not sure. Well, January of 2018. Sorry. January of 2019. Right. So December of 2018 to January of 2019, it says that it's 90 days late. How is that even possible? So we know that based on this information right there and then, that's the first issue right off the get-go on an Equifax reporting standpoint. But we can go a bit further, and we can say similar issues are presented with TransUnion from, what do we got, February of 2019 to March of 2019. How is that permitted? Right? Just right there. Just based on one specific thing we're looking at, and we're trying to identify this information right off the get-go. We see it right here with TransUnion from February of 19 to March of 19. It's a 90-day jump, right? So an account to go 120 days later, or even charged off, that huge leap of 90-day jump is completely inaccurate, and it basically, destroys the reporting infrastructure and integrity and accuracy standpoint, right? So we need to leverage that information. Are you guys getting it so far? Let me know in the chat section that, yeah, this makes sense, and definitely we understand what's going on, all right? So let's analyze further. Okay, so I just wanted you guys to get familiar with that, because it's very important that we see those things, because we have to label it out as we see them, because that's the most important thing when it comes to credit repair, all right? We have to label it out. We have to stack the evidence for us. Now, we talked about something very important. We talked about if item goes missing for a little bit and gets reinserted, there has to be a notice sent within 5 business days that the item has been reinserted. What do we got here? On March of 2019, let's go ahead and ask that, right? So in March of 2019, Equifax decided to remove reporting and reinserted reporting on April of 2019. You see that? Why was no reinsertion letter and notice provided to me within 5 business days? All right, we just asked 3 questions and we should be done with the account on its entirety. But do you guys see this? This is an incredibly important thing for you guys to start to memorize and get familiar with when it comes to getting those items off the credit reports. But we didn't even look at the account, right? Like I said, we don't have to. That's the beauty of understanding the payment grid. We don't even have to go deeper into this. We're just basically looking at the way they're reporting the history, obviously logically speaking, and going on a logical transactional standpoint. You cannot have a 90-day within a 30-day cycle. That doesn't exist. You can't do the same with the other bureaus. And if you decide to disappear for a little bit right here and come back again, that means that you're stating to me, I don't have to ask you, and you don't have to say, oh no, we were still reporting, but based on the payment grid, you were stating to me that you removed the account and then you put it back in April. And you have to show proof that that was the case, that you actually still were there, and if so, how come you didn't report, and we can charge you for that punitive and statutory damages. And if you decided to remove yourself and did reinsert, that's another damage that can be added up. So there's an ultimate trap that we need to learn to be very congruent with when it comes to our communication. All right? So that's very, very important. So we got Carlos and Armita. Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you, Armita. Yeah, I'd definitely like to help you guys here. So Tony says, aren't you going to delete the information because reporting? Yeah, for sure. So here's the thing, Tony, or anybody listening in, is that's their responsibility. They got to decide whether they have to delete it. They got to decide whether they have to modify everything to make it okay. they got to make sure that if they do modify to make it okay, they got to go through every single month and how to report. And what do we know? The credit bureaus, the creditors, it's a for-profit organization with stakeholder value and shareholder value. The last thing they want to do is spend half an hour inefficiently going through accounts, or perhaps 2 hours, to make them updated to standard, to make it so that it reflects accurately, so that they're not liable on the highest standard of financial damages to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So because it's too much work, the likelihood of this account coming off in its entirety due to the leading amount of errors on a month in, month out basis, chances are that this item was automatically subject for removal either way, right? It's not like that one item that we had, which was a small little mistake of payment, right? This is literally a couple of months of consistent inaccuracies that's being reported and is subject to removal. So that's just something that automatically creditors and the credit bureaus ultimately on a business decision and the Oscar system compliance decision will make the choice of removal. So we don't necessarily ask for removal, because what happens ultimately is that's always going to happen, especially if you learn to question the process effectively. So I hope that makes sense, Tony, to answer that question for you. Please let me know if that makes sense. Let me know, guys. I hope that makes sense, okay? So that was one account that we just had to analyze together. So I hope you guys are starting to see the magic as to how this works and what do we have going for us, and why it's so important to learn to analyze accounts and payment grids very effectively, because it gives us a whole lot of leverage to get those items removed, technically speaking, but also it shows that we know what we're talking about, right? It's not just like some random generic template that we printed out from the internet. Like, we're literally putting some substance into our documents. And that's what I want for you guys, because there's no point of doing credit repair if we don't have it properly structured, right? So we're done with that account. I'm going to skip to the next page. Just give a little bit of blank here. And okay, so let's go. Here's another account for you to review, please. And let's go find that account for you guys, right? Well, while I do that, if you guys have any specific questions in reference to what I'm sharing with you guys, I'd appreciate it if you put it in the chat so that we can answer that for those people watching, okay? Let's go for a collection agency, because I like playing with collection agencies, okay? Let's go ahead and scan that for you. And then once I'm done with that, I can put it up on the account. Perfect. It's there. Let me know if you guys see that. Let me know if you guys are able to see this account right here. We got a debt collector right up in here. LVNV funding, I'm pretty sure most of you, if not everybody probably here, has heard about this already. All right, so let's go ahead and play with this collection agency, if I may. Okay. Now, I want you guys to pay attention to, obviously, the payment grid. I made you guys start off with the payment grid, right? That's very important, and that's the first thing we look at. But tendencies of a collection agency is that they miss a lot of stuff on payment grid. Sometimes altogether they don't report because they protect themselves by not doing so, and they protect themselves by not having extra stuff that can be stacked against them and violate. But here's the problem. If you're putting an account on a credit report, by obligation, payment history needs to be recorded. That is just an automatic thing that you have to do, and you have to comply, because the software, the Oscar, right, the formatting of reporting is called the Metro 2 format. It's the standard format, right? Now, I don't want to get too technical. I'm pretty sure you guys have already heard of that. But the Metro 2 standard of format, in order to have an account accepted to the credit reports through Oscar, requires payment history to be collected. If you don't have that information on a collection account, or you're reporting information with that information missing, what happens is the structure is not compliant to the standard of reporting. It's very much violating the right to report. You see what I'm saying? Like, I want you guys to understand these type of things, right? So an account, when reported, needs to have 100% needs to have payment history included. It's as simple as that. If you don't have payment history included, that means the right to report is void and essentially automatically subject for removal. That's just credit reporting style, right? We didn't even go to the mistakes as of yet. So number one, right? Based on the above referenced account, payment being that the payment history is missing, the account is automatically subject to be removed. Also, account was never validated nor authorized to be reported. This is a tricky thing right here, right? Now I'm going to highlight this for you guys because I want you to really get familiar with this term right here, right? We said the information was never validated and it was never authorized to be reported. What is an authorization to report? It means that the creditor or the data furnisher in this instance in question has your permission to, number one, pull your credit report, but also at the same time have an accounting of your financial performance with them, because a pull of a credit report without appropriate authorization is criminal. It could be subject to prison time. And number two, at the highest order, when you're reporting credit information on a consumer, you have to make sure the consumer has been validated and the information that you're reporting is, again, EOSCR stands for complete and accurate reporting. It has to be complete. Obviously, is it complete? No. And it has to be accurate. Is this accurate? No, it is not. There's nothing of payment information. There's no monthly payment, yet there's a balance. If a monthly payment is zero, how can there even be a balance, and so on and so forth? Like, we're just going real deep into this one, all right? But I want you to be familiar with this terminology and verbiage. They were not authorized to report. They were never validated. The information of payment report is missing and payment history is missing, and therefore when payment history is missing, it is not compliant to reporting standard and therefore cannot even be allowed to report in the first place. And that's just a couple of small things for you guys, right? So please remove account and do not permit to be reinserted or reported via another name, alias, etc. immediately. Simple as that. You know, we can go a little bit further and go into the account specific data, but we're going based off of the payment history and the payment grid right here. But also at the same time, this right here, this verbiage that you guys are going to be using and the information that you're essentially saying is quite honestly true, right? So again, in order for me as a creditor to report account information about a consumer, I need to have, in the formatting structure, which is the Metro 2 format, I need to make sure that I have payment information logged, because that's a must in terms of compliance. I need to make sure the information is complete, EOSCR, right? Complete and accurate, as they advertise, or else it's considered false advertising, and the Federal Trade Commission gave it a blind eye for all these years. But let's say complete and accurate requires it has to be complete. Information cannot be missing. Terms have to be complete. Payment history has to be complete. Balances have to be complete. Payment history has to be logged in the payment grid, etc., etc. Date of last activity, the past 3 months, so on and so forth. All these type of things have to be included. We don't have any of that information, and therefore, how is that even permitted to be reported? It is not. So therefore, that's it. That's all, right? Complete removal of the account. So if you guys are understanding what I'm sharing with you guys and you're starting to appreciate the information that I'm sharing, give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to just leave it in the chat that, yeah, this makes sense, Ali. I'm starting to understand why this is important. So I hope this is helping you guys. And we're going to go further in and try to identify a couple more accounts for you, or maybe one or two more, just to wrap it up here quickly. But I'm hoping you guys are starting to see the magic of learning on how to effectively analyze a credit report, because that's really where the power is at, right? There's a reason why I keep telling you guys, learn the structure of how to analyze, learn the importance of analysis, because that's the best friend you have that's going for you when it comes to credit repair, because you have to do it in a very legal structure. And remember, you have to stack as much as you humanly possibly can at the first level before you even go to round two, and you're actually doing so in a very effective way. So we have a question here by Willis. How can a collection agency remove from the second bureaus and later insert the third bureau it was never on? So to answer that, Willis, they can't, right? Because at the end of the day, just use this infrastructure. And if you're following the video and if you came a little bit late, when information is reinserted into an account, right, they have to let you know within 5 business days that information is being reinserted. So there's just so much violations to leverage and the verbiage and language to use when it comes to a collection agency reinserting themselves in a bureau that there should have never been in the first place, right? So I hope that that's starting to make some sense. All right, perfect. So what I'll do, just to help you guys out, and I'm going to start asking or answering some questions for you. But I just wanted to show you like the letter writing strategy, and I'm going to give you some bonus tips right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to close this out completely, and we're gonna zoom out and open up the chat a little bit to give you guys some room to communicate here, and then we should be able to summarize the live stream shortly. Let's see. Okay, perfect. I think that should do it. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and answer some questions now. So Rick asks, so first and foremost, I hope you guys enjoyed that real quick session of how to write your letters. Why I use Identity IQ in reference to, I mean, you can technically use any bureaus, so long as you have a side-by-side comparison that you can put up, and then you can start to address those issues and concerns over the document. But let's look at some of the questions we got, right? Now, when it comes to Rick asking, what about the address problem and the experience stating that a police report is necessary? The reality is a police report is not necessary, right? The address information that they got on you, they have to provide you exactly which creditor and who is reporting this information. And generally speaking, what happens is you might want to consider freezing SageStream, LexisNexis, and other third-party reports, because that's where usually the data is gathered. Now, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and get a complete report from Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion that includes data sets that are identified. Like, for example, address is included with ID 12345 or whatever the case. And I want you to match that with information that you may potentially have applied with. And if you know a specific creditor that has this address about you that is negative, go ahead and ask the creditor to adjust the address because it's false or misleading. And what happens is automatically the creditor is the one that actually put that information up, and they can remove it for you. But if not, then you should not stop to say, well, I need a police report. That's actually completely BS. Just simply state that, this is not something that I want. This is not my address, and whatever information you're putting out there is not proper, right? So write to the creditor about address change, but also at the same time the bureaus, make sure that, so you should be okay. If you froze those third-party bureaus, you should have no issues. But if you're still having issues, what you want to do is you want to write an affidavit of truth and facts. You want your current address, if you have it, with the utility bill as a demonstrated information. And on the credit report, take that snapshot where it's showing the wrong address and say, I certify that this is not my address. And you're not saying this is not my address now, right? You're not saying that this was never your address. You're saying this is not my address now. It's a truthful statement. You're playing with it. But at the same time, if you do that and you create a utility bill, or you have a utility bill that you can leverage and send it back to the bureaus, usually there's an irrefutable fact that this isn't yours, right? So they cannot keep it there because continuing to do so is unacceptable. So try that attempt with an affidavit and see if that works. If it doesn't, then you can call them up and say that you get my document, and there's a whole level of process there. So go ahead and try that, Rick. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to get back to you, Rick, on that. The creditor just changed the address to fit the account. I'm not sure what you're meaning by that. Do you saying that the creditor changed the address that shouldn't be there, or they put an address that shouldn't be there but they verified it and therefore it's sticking there for a long time? And if so, if the creditor is at a negative account, and if it's not, if it's a positive, then I'd just leave the address alone, unless you absolutely need to change it, right? So JJ is asking, a charge-off removed on TransUnion and Equifax IRS, still not experiencing any of this, wrote letters with no luck. Okay. So I'm going to ask you, JJ, if it's already removed from those both, the letter that you had sent to the credit bureaus that had that account removed, send it to the creditor. Send it to the creditor, but use the from address, not from you, but send it from the creditor that has it still reporting. Start to play a little bit, right? Send a letter from the credit bureaus to the creditor with that account still being reported that it should be gone. And the same letter that you would have had sent directly to the bureaus, and it's simply you're relaying information to the creditor, because sometimes the credit bureaus don't necessarily send up the ACDV form to the creditors, right? So that's why you can actually forward it on their behalf or whatever, because it's nothing that you're doing bad. It's now they're actually getting a physical mail from the credit bureaus. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Hey, thank you, Lita. I'm glad you enjoyed the video here today. So Rick, the account to fit the account. Now, is the account negative? The creditor that's reporting this address, is it negative or is it positive? That's the first thing I want to know, at least, so that we can go from there, if that makes sense. And by the way, guys, if you want to take advantage of like bankruptcy removal and additional tactics and strategies, if you're an insider's member, if you join the channel membership, it's a very small fee and it's monthly amazing videos that are coming up, 2 live streams a month. The next video that I'm doing, the next live stream, is going to include a breakdown of how to remove bankruptcies and go further into the letter writing process. I'm going to tell you guys on the logistical process and how to execute the campaign so that you actually get some responses, right? So that's going to be included in the Insider channel members video, which is going to be next weekend. We're going to do a same type of live stream, but it's going to be for channel members only. So I look forward to seeing you guys there if you're already joined. All right, so okay, so it's negative. Perfect. So the negative account, if it's reported by the creditor and so on and so forth. Now, the first thing you want to do, Rick, before you even start to challenge the address, is make sure that you take the snapshot of the creditor, how they're reporting, and use the questioning process that you learn in this video when it comes to letter writing. That's the first thing. And don't just ignore the aspect of the address still being there. On your same envelope that you're sending out your documents, and the same place that you're actually writing to the credit bureaus, make sure that you're actually including what we call the negative account removal information as well. So that's very important. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Sorry if the camera froze again, so I'm trying to fix that. Come back up. So let me know if that makes sense. So again, include address removal in addition to the negative item removal and structure in that document to have that information removed. Okay? So that should do it. So I'm going to wrap it up soon. I got a couple things I got to work on. But it was a pleasure having you guys here, and really I enjoyed sharing this information with you guys and giving you an experience that's completely different when it comes to letter writing. I want you guys to go practical. I want you to understand the way I look at things, and I want you to be very familiar with on how to analyze a credit report the way it's meant to be analyzed. Don't just leave it to chance. Take control over it, and you got to learn how to be aggressive with it, because that's the only time you're going to get some outcomes, right? So that's that. If you want to upgrade your knowledge and you want to take it to the next level, you have my course, The Ultimate Personal Credit Mastery 3.0. Amazing levels of content in there, a lot more than what you saw today. It'll definitely help me out as well, but of course helps you more than anything else. So check that out, The Ultimate Personal Credit Mastery 3.0. Link is in the description if you guys want to see that. And of course, if you haven't joined the channel membership, there's amazing videos already inside, but there's going to be a live stream happening next week that's going to go deeper into the letter writing process. I'm going to deep dive a whole lot more in terms of bankruptcy, charge-off, student loan, and it just go a little bit more in depth, especially logistical exercises that'll help you get the attention from the credit bureaus and the creditors at the same time. So that's definitely something that I'd like to see you guys join and be a part of and join us. Perfect, amazing, more in depth. For sure. So, Arnita, go ahead and check out the channel membership if you want. There's quite a bit of details there as well. If not, then some of my other videos will have that information. The course has that detail, but definitely I'm going to put up a couple more videos for you guys as well. Hey, Shay, good to see you here, and I'm glad you enjoyed. Rick, always a pleasure. And this would be it for me today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy that you guys showed up and had time and exercise to go through those letter writing processes with me. And with that said, this is definitely your guide and mentor, I'll be after. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye for now.